Welcome to the Depth Dive. We have a really fascinating source today. It's from FlightNHotels.com, and it takes us on a pretty unusual journey.
Yeah, definitely usual. The topic is traveling to North Korea.
Exactly. The DPRK.
Right. A place often discussed, but, rarely visited. This source presents it as this deeply unique destination there in East Asia.
Okay, so let's really dig into this source. Our mission here is to pull out the key insights, the details about visiting this, enigmatic country, specifically through the lens of this travel piece.
Mm-hmm.
And right off the bat, the source kind of sets a specific tone. It frames North Korea as a hidden gem, but, and this is key, for a traveler, it calls brave.
Yeah, brave, someone looking for the road less traveled. That's the phrase they use.
It promises something quite different from your average trip, right?
Yeah.
Deeply immersive, eye-opening.
And this is a big but. Right up front in the source, it's presented as a highly organized and guided trip. So it's immediately telling you, forget about wandering off on your own. Spontaneity is not really part of the deal here.
Yeah. Okay, so that framing is crucial. With that in mind, why does this source even suggest someone consider this kind of trip? What's the core appeal it lays out for that brave traveler?
Well, the source basically says it's a destination like no other. The appeal seems to be this very unique mix, history, culture, and, yes, very overt politics.
Right.
It's positioned as offering a rare look, that's the phrase again, into a society completely different from the Western world. It's more about witnessing something rather than, say, freely exploring it.
And does the source get more specific? What are the actual reasons listed?
Oh, yeah, it does. It mentions that the tourism, even though it's strictly guided, is incredibly eye-opening. It talks about the architectural grandeur.
Like what specifically?
Well, it names iconic things you'd likely see, like the Juche Tower, huge structure, and the Kumsusan Palace of the Sun.
Okay.
There's a big emphasis on the country's revolutionary history, its rich cultural traditions, and, again, that chance to see a society that operates very differently.
Yeah.
And interestingly, it doesn't just focus on the man-made stuff. It also lists stunning natural landscapes, mountains, and coastal views as part of the draw.
So it's acknowledging the natural beauty, too, not just the political or historical aspects. Okay, now, how does the source say you actually do this? You mentioned highly organized.
Yeah, it's super clear on this. Tourism is only possible through approved tour operators. Full stop.
No independent travel.
None. The source states that's just not permitted.
Got it. And where do these organized trips usually kick off from?
According to this source, most tours start in Beijing, China.
Okay.
From Beijing, travelers then take either a designated flight or a train straight into Pyongyang.
Right, and this seems to be where the source, FlightNHotels.com, kind of brings itself into the picture.
Exactly. It mentions that their platform can help with those initial steps outside North Korea.
How so?
Like you can use it to compare flight prices for getting to Beijing in the first place.
Yeah.
Or book hotels in transit cities Beijing, maybe Dandong near the border.
Ah.
Even arrange rental cars for those transit points. So it's positioning itself as a tool to manage the logistics before you actually join the official North Korean part of the tour.
Makes sense. It helps you get to the starting line, essentially.
Pretty much managing that first leg of what is overall a very structured journey.
All right. So you've managed the transit. You're now inside the country on this approved tour. What are the top attractions this source highlights? Let's maybe start with Pyongyang, the capital.
Okay, Pyongyang.
Mm-hmm.
It's described as a meticulously planned city. Think massive boulevards, huge monuments, lots of government buildings, very grand scale.
And specific highlights mentioned.
The Juche Tower, which the source identifies as the symbol of the Juche ideology, that core principle of self-reliance they talk about.
Right.
Then there's the Mansudae Grand Monument. That's where you see those giant bronze statues of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il.
Ah, yes. Very iconic images.
Very. Also, the Arch of Triumph, and the source makes a point of saying it's taller than the one in Paris.
Oh, interesting detail. Emphasizing the scale again.
Definitely. And Kim Il-sung Square, which you've probably seen in pictures famous for the big military parades and ceremonies.
Okay, that paints a picture of the capital. What about outside Pyongyang? What else does the source suggest you might see?
It highlights Kaesong and the demilitarized zone, the DMZ.
Right, near the border with the south.
Exactly. Kaesong is described as a historical city. Key spots there include Panmunjom Village.
Where officials meet sometimes.
That's the one, yeah. Where North and South Korean leaders have occasionally met. Also, the Koryo Museum, which has exhibits on ancient Korean history, and of course the DMZ tour itself. The source calls it a rare chance to step near the border between North and South.
A rare chance.
Yeah, that definitely fits the road less traveled vibe they mentioned earlier. Seeing one of the world's most tense borders up close. Where else does the source mention?
It talks about Mount Paektu, describes it as kind of mystical with a big crater lake.
The source notes it's considered the birthplace of Korean civilization, and it's also linked to legends about Kim Jong-il's birthplace, which is presented as important in their national story.
So, nature tied deeply with national identity and history, according to the source.
Yeah, that seems to be a recurring theme. Activities there are listed as hiking and photography.
Gotcha. Any other natural spots?
Mount Pyongyang is another one, highlighted for its beautiful natural scenery. But the big draw there, according to the source, is the International Friendship Exhibition Hall.
What's that?
It's this huge complex, apparently, housing just thousands and thousands of gifts given to North Korean leaders from other countries over decades.
Wow, like a museum of diplomatic gifts.
Sort of, yeah. A unique window, the source suggests, into their international relations, displayed in this grand setting.
Interesting. And finally, the source mentions Wonsan and Mount Kumgang.
Yes, the Diamond Mountains, Mount Kumgang. These are described as being popular spots for North Koreans themselves, for domestic tourism, and they're apparently being developed more for international visitors, too.
What do they offer?
Wonsan is presented as having seaside resorts, beaches, seafood. Mount Kumgang is known for its really dramatic scenery, hiking trails, waterfalls, caves.
So, even within the controlled environment, the source suggests there's a range of things to potentially see: cities, history, nature.
That seems to be the idea presented, yes.
What about the everyday stuff, like food and culture? What does the source say you'd encounter?
The cuisine is described as traditional. It notes it's, structurally quite similar to South Korean food, but maybe uses simpler ingredients sometimes.
Any specific dishes mentioned?
Yeah, a few must-tries, according to the source. Naengmyeon, those cold buckwheat noodles, really refreshing.
Oh, I know those. Delicious.
Kimchi, of course.
Bibimbap.
And various local beers and soju.
So, familiar Korean staples, but probably with their own distinct local character.
Presumably, yeah. And on the culture side, the source makes a big deal about the cultural performances.
Like what?
Specifically, the mass games, sometimes called the Arang Festival, though it doesn't happen every year.
Ah, yes, I've heard of those. The scale is supposed to be incredible.
That's exactly how the source describes it, a major draw, showcasing synchronized gymnastics and storytelling on a massive scale. Thousands and thousands of performers.
Just imagining the coordination? Wow. Okay, let's switch to practicalities. What essential tips does the source offer for someone considering this trip based on its description?
Well, first, accommodation inside North Korea is typically arranged by the tour operator. You don't choose your hotel.
Right.
But, the source points out again, travelers usually transit through cities outside NK, like Beijing, Dandong, or Shenyang. And in those cities, it says you can book your own hotels.
And that's where FlightNHotels.com loops back in again, suggesting you use their platform for those transit bookings.
Correct. It mentions using them to compare and book those hotels in China, maybe find deals, reserve airport transfers, or even rental cars before you start the guided North Korea segment.
Got it. Managing the bits you can control. What about the crucial tips for during the trip in North Korea itself?
Okay, this is where the source gets very direct, reinforcing the controlled nature. Tip 1. You absolutely must book through an approved tour company. No way around it.
Okay.
Tip 2. Follow all local rules and etiquette strictly. Paramount.
What kind of rules?
Well, for instance, photography is restricted in many areas. You have to be very careful about where you point your camera.
Right.
Internet and mobile phone access is heavily limited or non-existent for tourists. Don't expect to be online.
Okay, good to know.
And maybe the most critical point the source makes. Respect the local culture, and especially the leaders. It explicitly states that criticism is not tolerated.
Wow. Okay, those aren't just suggestions. Those sound like absolute must-dos for navigating this kind of trip, according to the source.
Absolutely. The source really underlines that this isn't a casual trip. It's a visit conducted entirely on North Korea's terms, as presented in this piece.
So pulling all this together from the source, it's definitely painting a picture of travel that's far from a typical beach holiday.
Not at all. The source frames it as a journey into a, quote, preserved world of ideology, symbolism, culture, and untouched natural beauty. But the key is preserved and presented. You're seeing a very specific, curated view.
And the need for preparation just comes through again and again in the source's advice.
Yeah, it really stresses that. It concludes by saying, careful preparation and respect for local rules are essential. No ambiguity there.
Okay, so here's a final thought, drawing only from what this source has told us. It describes North Korea as offering this rare look into a society completely different, calls it a preserved world, but constantly hammers home that the experience is strictly guided, with major restrictions on where you go, what you photograph, even what you say. Given that intense level of control and curation described by the source, what does this specific portrayal of travel actually reveal about the nature of exploration itself? When the path is so tightly managed and the lens you're given is so specific, what are you truly exploring? Something to think about.